Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Xiaomi Wiha bit set. First off though, I want to thank my Patreon patrons very much who make it possible to see a new bit set for 25 bucks and go, oh yeah, I should probably check that out, order it without a second thought. I very, very much appreciate that. Next thing, size comparison. Here this little guy is against your Spyderco Delica, as always. Here it is against your Ontario Rat number 1, Rat number 2, and of course your Spyderco Paramilitary 2 pocket knife. This is mostly because very often I am doing I'm using these bit sets on my channel at least for disassembling pocket knives. That's sort of a thing that I do, for maintaining tools, and so, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Probably doesn't actually. And then actually, let's do a comparison against some of the other sets I've recommended on the channel here. This is the Wiha Precision Microbit Driver Set. So you can see here, this is a substantially smaller and more compact package. And then here it is against the Wiha. Oh, I don't even remember the freaking name of this guy, but it is sort of their master set, if you will. So again, this is substantially smaller, both in terms of thickness as well as in terms of overall size. So my goal here today is just to talk about this guy and talk about whether I'm going to, recommend this guy as the main set people use, or maybe something else in the future. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, the ugly of this very interesting little set here. Actually, one thing I want to note real quick is that this is actually a Wiha product here. A lot of people have raised questions like, oh, this is made by a Chinese company. Are they just stealing Wiha's name? No, this is not the case at all. Wiha has promoted this. This is a co-branding effort. They are entirely in, everybody is in cahoots. This is important, of course, because Wiha is one of the makers of the very best tools out there in terms of screwdriver bits. They really do excellent work. So that's what's going on here. Let's go ahead and jump into the good and the bad, because it's a quick review. It's a freaking screwdriver set of this little guy right here. So on the good side, this is a standard bit size. There are all kinds of sets out there that use this micro bit style format, and you know what? It works well. There were no real complaints with it. It is absolutely solid. Let me do a quick measurement here. Where the heck are my calipers, people? Come here, calipers. I know you're around here someplace. I was just using you for a review. People, come on. Don't fight me here. Oh, here they are. All right, I'll go ahead and measure those out, put these into a reasonable unit, and we can see here, I'm measuring these guys at 3.8 millimeters. That seems a little off. Or 0.15 inches. All right, whatever. It's probably, oh man, I gotta check my calipers again. But anyways, these are a standard bit size. You can get these, and these bits are interchangeable with the kinds of bits that you will find in other sets from other manufacturers. So there you go, that's good. Next thing, this guy has a very good selection of bits. What we can see here is we have and I'll kind of go through it here, you have a tri-way pivot, right, or I'm sorry, a triangular, I forget what the name of it is, but you've got a triangular screw there. You've got a selection of Phillips screws. You've got a selection of slotted screws. Then you have two pentalobular screw bits. These are what Apple is using. The P2 is what's using on the iPhone that's filming this right now. The P5 is what they're using on their current MacBook Pros. Then you have a series of Torx bits, T2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 15. And then a couple of hex bits. You've got a 1.5 and 2.0 millimeter hex bit. You've got this slotted, spanner security screw bit, and then a triangular bit that I have honestly never freaking seen before, but I'm sure it's on something somewhere that's consumer hostile. So there you go. In terms of my life, the most important ones are the T6, T8, T10, because those are the ones I'm using most often. But you've also got the nice Phillips and flatheads and things like that. And if you're dealing with stupid proprietary screws, this is a good set. One other thing to note is that the Torx bits are actually hollow. Show this off here as opposed to a T8 from the regular Wiha set here. Is this the T8? It's T7, but you can still see my difference here. You can see here that this has the hollow point in there. Some manufacturers are using these hollow. They'll put a little dot inside the Torx just to make it even harder to take things apart. Look, that is 100% thoroughly ugly, but it's always nice that you can take care of that. So again, this is really targeted at the electronics industry. So keep that one in mind. It could end up being a problem with huge amounts of torque, but in my practice, they've been absolutely fine, and that's, can't argue with that. Wiha branded bits are good. That's the next good thing. I really like Wiha stuff. I'm not a man with a huge amount of brand loyalty, but Wiha over and over and over again has just made really, really good screwdriver bits, and especially with these smaller sorts of things, like a T6 bit is borderline too small for any damn thing, and when they're made well with sufficient hardness, and I mean, this is really important. So I really do like using good bits, and these are going to be absolutely good bits. I've used these guys, they're great. Next thing, the drive rod here is decent. It has a couple of nice features, namely this little rotating back bit here allows you to spin things, and it allows you, if you're kind of screwing into something, you can kind of grab the driver in the back of your hand here and then spin with the front. It's a little detail, but it absolutely does make things a little bit nicer. It also has a magnetic bit holder in there. Unlike in the base Wiha kits, where it is sort of friction-based, where you have to kind of shove it in there, like so, and then yank it back out of there. That can be a bit of a pain in the neck. This guy has the magnetic system. That's actually kind of nice. I do appreciate that very much. And then finally on the good side, actually not quite finally, penultimately on the good side, what you have here is beautiful industrial design. So I've been showing you this chunk of it, but in practice, the whole thing goes like this. You put it into this little container here, this little metal piece, and then it ends up with basically a non-porous thing. I can shake this around. I can move it around. Absolutely not a damn thing is happening. I can bounce it off of things. I can throw it around. Nothing is happening. But then when I press this little guy at the top here, it pops out and slides free. That's nice. What this means is I can throw this into my backpack and not a damn thing is going to happen to it. I don't have to worry about bits going everywhere. And mind you, it's roughly the same thing with something like this, but this is a little bit less rattly, a little bit, and frankly, it's just a beautiful object. The fact that it won't come open, and by the way, all of these bit holders are magnetic, so I just drop the bit in place, and it will find its way back in there. Even if I do this, these bits in the driver ain't coming out. This is astounding industrial design. I really, really like the design of this piece. It is really kind of nice. I wish that all the things in my life were as well designed as this thing is here. So that's great. And then finally on the good side, the price on this is very solid. You're looking at 26 bucks on Amazon to buy this. Yeah, that'll do. This is a good selection of bits. They're reasonable bits in good quality here. And it's 10 bucks cheaper than my usual recommendation, which is this set over here from Wiha directly, with what is in some ways a nicer driver, in some ways not as nice. Pardon me, we'll get back there later. But nevertheless, this is a very nice little setup for that money. And so, to me, all of that is the good. The price is good. The industrial design on this guy is absolutely great, with a snap-in sort of thing here. The driver is decent. Wiha branded bits are good. Get the hollow Torx bits, as well as a very nice selection of bits, including a bunch of stupid security screws. And it is a standard bit size, so you can always swap those guys out if you have other bits that you'd like to carry instead of those. On the bad side, unfortunately, there are a couple of little issues here. One of them is that there is not really a handle extension here. Look, this is a relatively thin driver here, but it can actually sometimes be helpful to have an extension that you can plug into something like this and then get deeper into something. You know, every so often I'll take apart like an electronic box or something like that, and it'll have, you know, some weird inaccessible screw. That can be nice. Not crucial, but it's something to keep in mind. Next thing, the bit selection on this guy really is more tuned to consumer electronics. You know, this tri-way bit here is never really a thing. And similarly, these triangles, the pentalobes only make sense if you're buying Apple products and trying to take them apart. There were a bunch of bits here that are maybe a little bit less useful in everyday life, for instance, for things like disassembling knives, watches, pocket tools. They're not as helpful there. Actually, oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I just realized this Leatherman right here is using these hollow Torx bits. So you can see here, there's the little hole in the middle there. It'd help if I'd grab the right size. But yeah, so this fits right around that hole. Sorry, I just realized I'm sitting right next to a, hollow Torx bit. But anyways, there you go. But there are a lot of things in here that are not super useful in your everyday life if you're not doing a whole bunch of electronic stuff. And, unfortunately, if you're doing things like knife disassembly, you're missing a couple of important little bits in here. For instance, for hex bits, you get exactly two options, a 1.5 and 2 millimeter hex bit. Whereas on this guy, you're getting a whole bunch of different hex sizes in here through a whole different range. And that's something that you will probably encounter in your everyday life, more likely than you will encounter a triangle screw pivot or, you know, something like that. So that is something you're going to want to keep in mind. And you're definitely missing things like T20 and whatnot. But again, that's because those tend to be much bigger bits. Do I have T20 around here? That's T15. Are you T20? Yeah, this is a big old Torx 20. You're very seldom going to find that in a microbit size anyways, but you're not getting it there, and that's something that will occasionally come up. Next thing, this guy is the driver here isn't great. What I mean by that, now look, it works, absolutely 100%, it does do the trick, I guess. However, it is very thin in the hand, so it feels very, you don't get a whole bunch of torque on it just because there's not a whole lot of diameter that you're rotating here. The bearing on it is a little bit slow. I do like a higher speed bearing on that with a little less traction. But the biggest issue with this guy is there is very little traction on it. A couple of times you've probably seen me during disassemblies when I've tried to use this kit, struggling because my hands are slipping instead of actually being able to turn this guy. This is especially the case when you've got things like thread locker or an over-tightened screw. This could absolutely be fixed by using a little bit of knurling. For instance, on this little guy, this is a bit by iFixit, where you can see they've put some very nice knurling around the handle. On this one, they have not. And so you get this very smooth, very pretty handle, but in practice, you don't have as much torque as you're using it, and that's not a great thing. I'm not a big fan of that whatsoever. And so, unfortunately, the driver itself, and you could probably do this with some modifications. You know, if you have a knurling tool, you could probably add some to it or something like that, but honestly, I'm not a big fan of this driver in practice. If somebody said, you know, Nick, this is your driver set forever, I would actually be really disappointed because this driver really just doesn't do it for me. I love every other part of this, but that driver bugs me. Then finally, I'll just note, and this isn't about the set itself, but this design is actually being ripped off by a bunch of other companies. So looking on Amazon, and, you know, you get, you know, every other generically named, you know, Clearway, you know, Wang Pu, all of these various Chinese brands are jumping in there and saying, you know, oh, well, you know, hey, we have the same set here. But the thing is, you're probably not going to get bits that are worth a damn. Anybody can make a piece of metal that's, you know, shaped like this, but using the right alloys and heat treating them well is the key part there. And so it does make sense to pay more for a really good screwdriving set because really good screws, really good screwdrivers, that is, can be the difference between a loose screw and a stripped one. So do keep that in mind and make sure that you're buying the real thing rather than buying some cheap imitation, because chances are you're gonna, well, this is cheap enough. Don't be a cheapskate. But anyways, there you go. So that to me is the bad, is that the design is being ripped off by a bunch of other companies, so be careful as you buy it. I'll throw a link to the official one up there above, but still keep that in mind. Or I'm sorry, in the description, that is. The driver on this guy isn't great, with not enough torque and whatnot. Bit selection is really tuned for electronics rather than the kinds of things you might encounter in your everyday life, and there is no handle extension. Although, honestly, that's not a big deal. Actually, there's no ugly here because it's a quick review, so let's just jump into the conclusion. Final conclusion, I think this is actually surprisingly good. I was very surprised by this thing. The bit selection is very solid, particularly if you're working with electronics. The driver that it includes with it will do the job. It works. I mean, there are not so many serious objections to it, and especially if you're just working with electronics where you're not using much torque, this is a solid little choice here. The industrial design is great. I really do like every damn part of this industrial design on this guy. Honestly, if everything in my life were this well designed, I would be a very happy man. And the price at 25 bucks is right. However, it does have some downsides. You're sacrificing a lot of space to stupid screws used by companies trying to lock you out of your purchases. I mean, I wish that we lived in a world where we didn't have to think about pentalobular screws, a freaking tri-wing, triangle spanner security. I wish that people just made things such that they would be able to be repaired by you at home and they wouldn't have to worry about locking you out of your purchase. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in, but it's frustrating, especially because we have all of these stupid proprietary screw bits in there, but we're missing important things like other hex bits, because hex bits are really important. And so you end up missing some of the things you're going to want on a daily basis. And then most frustrating of all, the driver just isn't that great. It is small, it is thin, it is slippery, a little slow to rotate. I'm just not a big fan of this. So I'm really on the fence with this guy. The price is right. It's good selection, great design. But the most important tool of all, the driver handle that you put the bits in, isn't very good, at least in my estimation. So personally, I'm going to go ahead and spend the money. I'm going to get a bigger set with the variety of screws I use, and then I'm going to go ahead and invest in a driver handle that's worth a damn, like this iFixit thing. If you're curious about the stuff I'm using on a regular basis, go to nickshabazz.com/tools. That'll show you all of the various tools I'm using regularly. But the thing is, I would much rather get a larger variety of screws along with a handle that is worth a damn. That's important to me. But if you are electronics focused, if you're driven by your budget, or you're a fan of industrial design above everything else, then I think this little guy, I think this little guy right here might be how meaningful upgrade for you. Get it? Because how me? It's probably not even pronounced that way. I'm sorry. But anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, that you don't feel screwed by this review, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.